Hi there everybody, and welcome to the beginning of our video series. We're going to be discussing how to do the chain stitch. Before we get into that, we'd like to discuss with you the basics of doing crochet in case you are completely new to the subject. And for those of you who are not quite so new, I'd ask that you bear with me as I explain this. You basically start off with a hook and your choice in thread, and it is important to try to keep your hook relative to your thread, and I mean this in the sense that you don't want to try to use a hook that is too small for the thread that you're going to be grabbing with. If it's too small, it ends up cutting through your thread and only grasping part of the fibers. And when you have a multiply yarn, it ends up only grabbing one of these little strands and starts creating holes or puckering, and you don't want that. So try to keep your hook so that it is able to grab your yarn without too much difficulty. On the opposite hand, you don't want to try to use a very, very large hook to grab very, very fine thread, or you're going to have a difficult time keeping your tension and your stitches looking the way that they are supposed to look. The other part is being comfortable with how you hold your hook. Some people prefer to hold their hook as if they're holding a pencil, and some people prefer to hold their hook as if they were holding a knife. And I prefer to use the overhand method. It is certainly okay to use the pencil method. There is no wrong or right way. It is just dependent on how comfortable you are in holding your hook. The same thing goes for your thread. I prefer to wrap my thread around several of my fingers and use my middle finger and thumb to hold my finished part as I use my hook to draw thread, and my pinky controls how much tension I allow my strands to have. Work around. Figure it out, try different methods. Some people prefer just having the yarn drawn over the top of your finger. Other people prefer to have the underhand drawing method. And for those of you who are accustomed to knitting, depends on how you are used to doing it. Whichever way makes you comfortable, go with it. Let's see here. So, the beginning of crocheting is making your slip stitch. Some people do this part by hand. I prefer to use my hook, and to do that I lay my hook on top of my strand, pull it off a little to the side, and twist. So this allows me to have a twisted strand, and you can see this by moving the hook up and down, and I press it with my thumb so I don't lose where it is against my my hook, and I pinch it between my middle finger and my thumb. This allows me to move my hook without creating a really huge loop, and I reach up and I grab the string with my hook and pull it through. And I don't allow my hook to slide freely. I don't pull extra string through, and I don't tighten it down after I've made my stitch. This allows you to keep a more uniform hook result when you draw through. So basically you are creating a series of slip knots. You yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and after so long your thumb ends up being way far away from the rest of your fingers, and if you were to continue using your thumb as the anchor on the very first stitch, you're going to end up finding it more and more difficult to keep your tension on your piece. So at some point it's a good idea to let go and move your fingers back up so that you can create reliable tension. And you're going to be hearing that phrase a lot, and it is very important, because if you have too tight of a tension where you are basically yanking back on your string after it's been pulled through, you're going to create stitches that are smaller than the head of the hook that you're currently using. This ends up making it very difficult for you to come back through your work with the hook and build upon this foundation that you're creating. If you make loops that are too big by having too loose of a tension, you'll end up having a piece that curls in on itself because your later stitches will end up drawing together the too large of a loop, and it ends up rumpling your piece and makes it look a little sloppy. So it's very important to spend some time and make sure you have a reliable chain stitch that you can look at a glance and say, yeah, that looks fairly even. And you want to make sure that you don't twist your piece as you're working on it. You don't want to grab it and then start working off to the right or to the left, or pull up with some and pull to the right with some, because it actually does affect how your chain looks when you let it go. So my biggest suggestion is to spend some time, get used to holding your hook, get used to holding your string and working together with your fingers so that you are comfortable enough to proceed to the next video, which is going to be your single crochet. And I highly suggest spending the time, make your chain, rip it out, and start all over again. Do this until you feel that you've pretty much mastered starting your chain, yarning over, and drawing through. And when you can do this and have pretty reliable and consistent results, then I would say you have mastered your chain stitch and are ready to go on to the next video. So take some time and practice and come back when you're ready. Thank you.